Welcome back to the Conservative Caucus podcast. Just got finished with a conversation today on his radio program with David Webb. You've seen him as a Fox News contributor. He's on SiriusXM is where his show is and where we talked. We had a discussion about the Hunter Biden pardon that Joe Biden just put out this week. And I'm telling you, crazy stuff related to that. I talk a little bit here about how important that was and why it's significant, and some of the effects that and other things Joe Biden is doing will, some of the effects that will be there for Donald Trump in his new term. Also, we talked a little bit about some of the nominees, and then I give my advice on where I think Donald Trump needs to go to try to clean out this system. I mentioned that specifically about Kash Patel, but also about how Donald Trump needs to totally take on everything that Joe Biden is doing right now and reversing every bit of it. So we'll have a discussion about that. You'll get my opinion. So to connect with us, go to our website, www.theconservativecaucus.org, and make sure you check us out there. Send us a message. Give us any feedback that you might have about what we need to do in the show. Of course, we'd like to know your opinion of who we ought to have on our podcast. We'd love to get that feedback from you. While you're at our website, make sure that you take advantage of the abundance of information we have there. We have our grassroots lobbying tips, our Citizen Action Center, which if you go to the top right of the website, you can sign up for. It'll help you to learn how to be effective in your local community to continue this movement that began in 2024 with the election of Donald Trump and with a radical shift in what we're doing. So anyway, with that, here's my conversation with David Webb.
Let's get back into this by the numbers and with the right questions. Again, there is a lot to be worked out around this pardon of Hunter Biden, a broad and sweeping pardon. Jim Pfaff joining me again to help us understand this. Again, there will be a lot of legal analysis, and I'd rather stay in the legal out of the pundit world, which is why we have Jim here. He's president of the Conservative Caucus at theconservativecaucus.org. So, Jim, my friend, welcome back. And broad, sweeping January 1 to 2014 to December 1, 2024, your reaction?
Well, it's breathtaking, honestly. I haven't been able to determine if it's absolutely the most broad of all pardons that have been given by a president, but it's definitely in the top five. I mean, it's got to be. And it really reveals something very dark and deep within the Biden family that Joe Biden's been trying to cover up for some time. I mean, he's a consistent liar. He's lied about everything that he's ever asserted as a politician. I cannot remember a time when he told a truth or at best a half truth. And that catches up with you over time. And therefore you have to go big to try to fix all your big problems. Well, I don't know that he'll be entirely successful with it, but this was kind of a pardon for him and for Hunter, because the effect of getting after Joe Biden or Jim Biden or the rest of the family gets a bit blunted with Hunter being out of the game.
And, look, there will be more analysis questions, of course, about the various shell companies, what can or cannot be protected from future legal action. We're not talking about political persecution here, Jim. We've got a man, Joe Biden, who has been corrupt his entire time in his adult years in public service from 1973 to now, whether corrupt in the sense of illegal behavior as alleged, or ethically corrupt, which has been made really clear in so many instances. So I'm not surprised by this. I don't know if you are. I suspect not, but you can speak for yourself. But now comes the question of what can be done about this. I suggest that a part of this needs to be a reality check for all of us, you, me, and everyone, that while we may never get to the big guy, Joe Biden or Hunter Biden or maybe any of the, Hallie or James Biden or Jill Biden for that matter, who seems to be left off the table when she is right next to Joe and the co-president, that we need to go after all the others involved in this because there is an entire substructure in government, in agencies. There's so much more to this, and it goes deeper.
Yeah, and listen, just to answer the first thing, it's highly predictable. The moment that he said he wasn't going to do this, honestly, I don't think there was anyone who thought that he wasn't going to pardon him. But in terms of going after all the associates, both family and otherwise, connected to this problem, I really do think we need to. Now, I don't want the Trump administration to lose focus on what they're going to do with what will be proposed through the DOGE thing with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, the rolling back of regulations. There's a massive agenda there that I don't want to get sidetracked by this. But what's the real prize is that if we do not weed out this corruption, it will continue to fester forever. And when you look at where we are at $35 trillion in debt, you understand that the American federal government has been a cesspool for paying off favored people for corporate interests to be able to get what they want ahead of any competition that they might have. And you have NGOs and other left-aligned organizations that are receiving hundreds of billions of dollars from the federal taxpayer. All of that has got to go away. What Joe Biden has been doing for so many years, by the way, and Bill and Hillary Clinton before him, which is just part of the whole same thing, what these people have been doing and building over decades has led to so much of the problems that we have in Washington, D.C., that Donald Trump needs to fix. So I think they can be equally aligned. I think he can do both very easily. We've got to weed out this Biden corruption and get even deeper than that. We have no other option as a country because we're going to go even further downhill irretrievably if we don't stop it all right now.
Yeah, and again, the people at the top often don't get touched, or it's the cost of doing business. Look, we saw this with the Clintons, right? Especially with the Clinton Foundation. Once Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump, donations dropped over 85%. If it was such a virtuous and effective foundation, then those donations would not have gone away. One of the other grifts here is USAID, now run by Samantha Power. And in this latest pronouncement by Joe Biden in Angola, $1.9 billion goes into this fund, and $823 million of it goes through USAID.
I got to tell you, David, and keep in mind, we're going to build houses in Angola, and FEMA says they don't have enough money to take care of North Carolina. The absurdity of this on its face. Listen, we need to excoriate this people. We have gone through 10 or 15 years of radical leftists pushing back against traditional American beliefs in our system and in traditional values. They have been attempting to shame all these people. It is time to turn the tables on that shame. Because this is the most shameful thing that you can imagine. He sends Hunter off to La La Land with a massive sweeping pardon and then runs off to Angola. The thing is, what has been the case with Joe Biden for many, many years now, it's always obvious the corruption in his heart and in his actions. It's always obvious. He always projects. He's actually really always been very dumb. He's been really stupid as a politician for a long time. You saw it in the as far back as the Clarence Thomas hearings. The guy's dumb, but we allow him to be smarter than Pfaff because we do not call out what he's doing. This Angola thing is just another in a myriad of examples where Joe Biden will give people the finger. He'll give the justice system the finger. He'll give morality the finger and then just go off and do what he wants to do. This is his pattern. He's always been this way.
Yeah, he's been very transparent, and now when given the power, he is, at least for his cause, effective. And look, we've got 47 days left. And again, recounting without the names, a conversation I had with someone who's known him for a couple of decades plus, that his anger and his ego and 47 days left, this is someone who knows Joe Biden, who says, we have got to watch. Payback is coming. He will pay back, pay off, embed. You saw what he did when he first got in there within the first 100 days of his administration. But this is a guy who's being rejected, and his ego, along with Jill Biden's ego, and this is why it's the Joe and Jill Biden administration, reminiscent of Edith Wilson, co-president. If you think about it, this is even more dangerous because they will act in 47 days.
Yeah, and the arrogance is so evident. And the question I have is, why are we only seeing kind of a moderate pushback? What happens in these lame duck periods, both in Congress and between the presidency, where we are supposed to always have this peaceful transfer of power? And, it always has been relatively peaceful. But you see time and time again presidents who will do corrupt things to meet the needs of friends while they're walking out the door. The respect and honor we had for the institution is gone now for some time period, and some have done it better than others. But you always have to be on the watch at these periods, because this is where the corruption gets the largest, and this is why they wait. I mean, it's why Joe Biden waited to pardon Hunter until now, obviously, get past the election season, get to a place where there's relative peace and quiet. So what do we do from here? What Donald Trump needs to do, in my mind, is, as I'm sure he is, keep track of all these things that are being propagated by Joe Biden right now and immediately take them on in the name of reversing what Joe Biden did. He can do that because this election was as much of a rejection of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden together. I mean, that's essentially was a rejection of both of them, the entire administration. And to restore trust and to restore sanity in our government in the name of taking down Joe Biden's policies, Donald Trump needs to reverse all this. I'll tell you this, because one thing you didn't mention is this recent deal apparently that's been made with federal employees in the Social Security Administration to lock in until 2029 their ability to work away from home. Donald Trump needs to walk in day one with that agreement, just like Ronald Reagan did when he took on the strike with the air traffic controllers back in the early 80s and early part of his administration. He just needs to say, I ain't playing, you're done. We should not have federal employee unions to begin with. That should just be absolutely illegal. It's not useful or helpful. It's a payback. It is a payback by certain people to political advocates who work for them. I mean, Hatch Act, the law that keeps federal employees from being able to participate in political activities, screw that. Hatch Act is broken all the time by the very people that Joe Biden just signed a deal with. So these are many things that Joe Biden is going to do. Donald Trump needs to reverse every one of them. He's going to be called vindictive. He's going to be called trying to get back at his enemies. No, he's trying to save the American people from massive, massive troubles. The federal employee system needs to be on notice that they are no longer valid in the way that they've been doing business, that the ones who are good better change their ways, and all the bad ones need to be stripped out. This is the time to do that. We have no other opportunity but right now, because if they win this battle in the next 4 years, then everything that was destructive going into this election season is going to get far worse than it ever was.
My guest, Jim Pfaff, president of the Conservative Caucus, and you're right, that other point, 42,000, I believe, is the number of employees that have been given this work from home. And, of course, we know what Elon and Vivek and DOGE have said, that you get back to work. I'll just shorten it. And I got to tell you, Jim, as a side note, Jared Moskowitz has joined this caucus in the House, and I would watch him very carefully. I looked into into history. I know his history, what he has said, and the Democrats are going to try to get in and muddy up the waters. I want to go to something else. This is another part of the cleanup needed. The FBI has been politicized long before Kash Patel's nomination to run the Bureau. And this recent, quote, uproar over this nomination is driven more by fear that someone will come in and say, we need to make the Bureau what the Bureau's mission statement is, not what your alt FBI or your own personal mission politically is. What's your take?
Well, there's a lot of reform to do. I think Kash is the guy to do it. Yet we need to turn it on its head. When Kash Patel said in his Sean Ryan interview that all 7,000 FBI employees in D.C. need to be sent out in the field to chase down criminals, that is not an exaggeration. Like, you maybe need up to 500-600 FBI officials in Washington, D.C. for any reason at all. And then that seems excessive to me, because the FBI's mission is to actually chase down criminals where they have jurisdiction, or to help local law enforcement where local law enforcement requests the help, because they do have superior investigative capabilities. And all of this idea of getting FBI involved in FISA warrants, in these international investigations that they do where they essentially act like the CIA, the FBI was in part involved, for example, in what was going on in 2022 down in Brazil, and telling Jair Bolsonaro to back down and not argue with the outcome, which, FYI, we know was a stolen election. I mean, we can argue about that back and forth here in the United States. It was absolutely stolen in 2022. We know that from everything that's been going on since. And the FBI was in part involved with that, as well as the CIA. The FBI has no business in this stuff. And that is why it can become politicized, because you put certain people into these positions where they do these really cool things, or so it seems, and they're going to advance their career, usually outside of the FBI, by doing these clandestine operations that are useless. The FBI is not a clandestine organization. It should never be. It obviously needs to do criminal investigations, behind the scenes until they can gather up all the information. But this clandestine observation of Catholic churches and Christian churches and pro-life protesters and all this sort of thing. The Gretchen Whitmer situation, where FBI essentially created a crime and to send people to jail and to help Gretchen Whitmer politically. This kind of stuff has got to stop, because that's not its mission in any way, shape, or form. So Kash Patel's the guy to do it, I think. And by the way, I don't know if you saw this, but he's got out of his last book, a 60-person enemies list. That is quite an interesting list of people who he, in my opinion, having reviewed it, rightly sees as potential problems for the American Republic. And this is a great pick, in my opinion, one of the, maybe the best, if not one of the best.
Jim Pfaff, president of the Conservative Caucus, the website, theconservativecaucus.org. Thanks as always, Jim.
Great to be with you. Thanks, David.
So just a few closing thoughts here. Thank you for listening to the Conservative Caucus podcast. We really appreciate you participating with what we're doing. Be sure to check out the show notes that'll be here. Share that with your friends. Share the podcast with your friends, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any platform. Make sure you share this podcast with your friends. Give us a thumbs up or a 5-star like. That really helps us. And of course, follow us. Follow our podcast as well, right on whatever podcast platform you're doing. Any one of those, YouTube, Rumble, anywhere. Just please follow us. Also, you can contact us at info@theconservativecaucus.org. That's info@theconservativecaucus.org. And if you like what you hear, make sure, like I say, to tell everyone, give us information about what you think we should be doing with this podcast and what you'd like to see. And we always appreciate that feedback. Thanks so much. And thank you for joining us at the Conservative Caucus podcast.